Okay, hot dog. Well, I got to tell you, so I'm super excited to be here with John Troutman. And so welcome to Power Living with Kimberly Langford. And, as a nurse, a coach, a Reiki master, an entrepreneur, I have truly built my life and my work, my whole purpose for being around helping and empowering others to live their best, healthiest, most authentically happy and powerful lives. So I love to share and visit with experts on all aspects of wellness, physical, emotional, financial, career, business, health, relationships, environment, and more. So super glad that you're here. If you want to step into your best self and just go ahead and listen in every week, I'll bring somebody fantastic for you to meet and really set you up for a great week. And John Troutman is no exception. John, I tell you, John and I we're kind of in a mastermind of sorts with some fantastic people, and I love the content you put out. So much value that's not only grounded in, the meaty stuff, the statistics and the science, but really truly you bring about a humanness and a hopefulness in your posts, and I think that so many of us are really hungry for that right now. And so, gosh, if you have a minute, I'd just love for you to share a little bit about, your expertise, what you do, love what you did today. And just if you could share with us a little bit about, why in particular your, EAP and offering these kind of benefits are so important.
Yeah, and Kimberly, thank you so much for having me. Again, the feeling is so mutual. I love connecting with like-minded professionals and those people who are truly passionate about their client success. I mean, that's our motto, but it's really who we are. And I see that in all of your content and you as an individual. It's a real honor to be with you today, and especially on this Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. And what a great witness there to what all you've done really your whole life. So again, on this day,
I'll pay you later, my friend.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here.
Right back at you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so, we really are an atypical EAP provider in the sense that, we are really driven to steer people in a relationship way towards the counseling that they need. So many times EAP providers try to steer people towards technology alone. And now technology can be very helpful. There's lots of great tools, but that's also the most expensive piece. And it's also the most successful piece. So, a lot of times our models and our plans that we offer our clients, we're not even, probably challenge me to even say this now, but it's the truth. We're not making any money for years down the road because we want to encourage people to get the counseling or the coaching that they need. Maybe it's an elder care situation where, like, my family members who are up in years need some guidance and some steering. I've got family who served in during the time of Korea War. So because they're veterans, they get different benefits. I have access to elder care law coaches who can help steer me with those individuals and give them the best counsel when maybe, they wouldn't get that counseling themselves. So we're very atypical from the standpoint that we're going to cover the entire household with renewable sessions. So it's just not a flat number. So my household of 5, for example, we would all get 4 sessions, but over time they would renew so that we could actually get a total of 60 sessions.
Wow.
It's a very robust model. But again, I encourage people to get the help they need, because oftentimes what you think is the initial problem that made you cross the line in your stress or your anger or frustration, it was just the icing on the cake. So we want to work with every individual to truly help them out wholly, and to make sure that we're covering them at their point of need, not just what was manifested in that moment at a job or at home.
Well, and two, the other thing that I think is really powerful there is, especially in a family setting or a team setting, you have one member who's suffering, the whole family the whole team is suffering. It's not just something for one person. It really does. Everybody who's involved with that suffers. So that's really important.
And I'm trying to tell everyone this right now, there's no such thing right now as a bad EAP. If you have one, I encourage everyone to use it, right? I mean, we're all under increased stress. And I was raised, if you have a job to do, you just add one more thing to it to get it done. Well, that doesn't always work when it comes to mental health. And we need to take those breaks and that time.
Or it works for a minute until you break, right? Until you fracture. And the problem therein is that then you have you have more destruction. You have a bigger problem. It's more costly. It's more traumatic than had you just, but it's interesting because even today, as far as we've come, especially when you're talking about psychological health, addictions, emotional things, we look back in the 70s even, so we've come a long way, and yet we're still, there's still a great stigma that really holds people back from, really reaching out for help. And I say reaching out, because sometimes we reach this way, we reach lateral or down, like drowning people, right? You reach out or you reach down, then you're all going down instead of reaching up for somebody who can help, right? So a lot of times what I see is that, we're just not reaching for the right thing, or we don't want anybody to know. And that it doesn't help any of us. So, and it holds us back from really stepping into our best selves. And, you look around and you think, when we are really going through some tough trials, we think nobody else has had these kind of trials, or that there's no end in sight, or, or just that there's just going to be no relief. And usually you don't see till you come through the other side, the richness in our lives that have come through because of those hard things that we weather, right?
Yeah, and I believe we all will be better off at some point in time down the road. We have to get there, right? We have to get.
Yes, we have to survive it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long enough to, yeah.
Absolutely, and we all could stand that encouragement, if nothing else, to have that life coach or just that person to bounce something off of. In what I am experiencing or feeling, is that real or is that from something else? Just to get that. There's something to be said of having that neutral party that can come alongside us, where they're not trying to upsell us, they're not trying to steer us for their own gain, they're trying to help us in life and business. And that's really the value of
and they hold us in a positive regard. That's huge too, because we don't always do that, right? And that's where that therapeutic helping relationship is so important. Somebody who is skilled and has the wherewithal to help somebody like that. It's a unique space to enter that kind of a helping relationship when sometimes we feel broken and we feel less than, but to be held in a place of positive regard and wholeness, I think it's really beneficial. It's just part of that. So what makes your platform unique in the marketplace besides that family approach and the renewable sessions? I think that's pretty unique. Is there a specific segment of the market that you work with, or?
Yeah, great question. So we'll take any size group, but we've got groups of 2, we've got groups of over 30,000. So in every case though, of every employer group, we're going to give you a client solution specialist, one person that'll work with that group. Oftentimes in smaller group, it's the employer. Larger groups, they're dealing directly with that HR contact to really help them get the utilization that they're really looking for. So when I talk about utilization, because in the world of EAP, that can mean many different things. It can mean you clicked on a website or you did something else with technology, and that may or may not be helpful to that person directly. But when I talk utilization, I'm talking about direct person interaction and engagement. So we're seeing 13%, which is way higher than the national average of utilization of EAP services. And having that one person contact to build the business relationship, it goes without saying, Kimberly, if I have as you and I have engaged one another on LinkedIn, I understand what you're doing. I understand some of your pain points that you've shared with me. That same thing exists with all of our clients and our client solution specialists. One of their jobs is to understand what's going on and what are their pain points, because we include trainings in all of our programs. So that way we can come alongside them, help them get those pain points. Plus we're there, now we're top of mind, and we've erased some of those barriers to use our services. So it's kind of like a cyclical process to get people to warm up to using us and
trust
familiar with what we do. And thank you, because trust is a huge part of it, right? Am I going to talk to a total stranger? Well, maybe, but if you trust
not when
them,
my chips are down.
right? Right.
It's interesting because you think about that. Well, they know we're here. It's available. We bring it out every employee fair. But when your chips are down, you're not going to call somebody you don't know. You're not. If you were stranded I use that example all the time. If you're stranded on the side of the road, you're not going to call an acquaintance to say, hey, it's 2:00 in the morning. Will you come pick me up? You're going to call somebody that has your back, that you trust. Right. And especially when you're dealing with some of these issues, some of these things, we don't want everybody wants to be seen in their best light, right? We want to be thought of well. And so, especially I think in these kinds of situations, that trust is really paramount. And when you think, it's interesting because when you think about that, so here you've got this educational component, you're building trust. And I think, I don't know, do you see in the marketplace, because I see sometimes where EAP gets treated kind of like fluff. It's like frosting on a cake, right? It's it's just extra. And I'm sure you've got some stats at hand, but for a workforce, I tell you, if it were me and my company, there's a big difference in knowing that everybody who's showing up to work is there to work. They're happy to be there. Everything's fine at home. I'm secure. I'm going to bring in my best foot into the door when I come into work. When you have people who are really struggling or crippled and they've got fears and things that are holding them back, they're not going to bring their best. You're going to have half an employee at best, right? So I don't know. Can you speak to some of that? Some of the bones behind that kind of concept where, programs like this can actually impact employee productivity and what's the phrase? Absenteeism, your employees who are there, yes, but not there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially now with COVID, it's a challenge because people may not even physically be there, but yet they're expected to be there mentally and, other capacities of their lives. So that's an additional challenge. Again, we host a lot of different trainings for our clients. I've talked about the customization piece. We'll work with them, but again, it's that relationship building part that really separates us, because we want to work with that HR person to see what's going on and what isn't going on, which employees are struggling and why. What are some things that they've seen? Certainly, we've got some technology that we do use, obviously, and we share those details to figure out what's going on behind the scenes, if you will. Why is a certain population looking at certain content? We can address it on that wavelength. But ultimately, being top of mind is a big part of that. So not just the trainings, but we do a lot of value adds. Through this whole COVID experience, we've been offering a lot of trainings just on stress management. I mean, who's not dealing with stress right now? Let them step forward.
And it's a safe place, right? Because an employer really, you look at from a legal standpoint, can't go there. Tell me how things are going at home. How is it going with your child? Those kinds of, and what I find when I talk to folks, employers really do care about their employees, but you can't, there's some things that you can't cross, and a program like this would be a safe place to be able to offer caring, but shield the employee in a way where they feel protected.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting in front of the client, we're still doing on-site things when those clients ask for that. Through the whole COVID experience, we were going to elder care facilities, retirement centers, because stress was high and they were getting a lot of cases of COVID, and they person face to face. Now it wasn't, it was more like mask to mask and through the glass, but we were there. And at the end, that's what it's about. It's being available at our clients' point of need, not what's convenient for us. So that's all part of that relationship piece. And we believe in that. Maybe, might be perceived as old school, but I believe that business relationships are far better than merely making a sales contract, right? So
Oh, I just love you for saying that, John. I'm a firm, you know me, I'm a firm believer in that business is personal. To say it's not, we all do. We all do business with people that not only are competent, because we do need competence, but people that we know and that we trust.
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear a little bit about more how you specifically are engaging and how you're, working, the value that you bring to your clients. I mean, there's a lot of contacts that I have, and not only clients, but also other benefit advisors that I'm connected to. I'm sure they'd love to hear a little more in depth of what you do and how you can, be of service to them.
Gosh, and vice versa. I think that takes so many of us, right? We're all in here. I will just say probably, as you know, I've been on the clinical side. I've been a nurse for more than 20 years and have really focused probably the last half of my career, really focusing in on kidney disease in particular, just because, what I saw in my clinical practice is that, and I'll just preface it by saying, everything is part of one big whole, right? So when you talk about health and wellness and productivity, it's all we don't have segmented little compartments. My mental health absolutely affects my physiology, and my physiology absolutely affects what's going on up here, right? And anyway, I digress. But what I saw in my clinical career was that for the most part, kidney disease, which, specialty care management, it's not our only focus. It's probably what we're most famous for, is our unique approach to kidney disease and dialysis in particular. But we're a risk mitigation company, meaning that we look for heavy risk. We look for the kind of risk that's going to close doors. It's going to take the wind out of people's sails and close businesses. We look for that heavy risk. And in particular, we want to have an impact, to bring an appropriateness to those things. And in so doing, really to not only protect and preserve our industry, because at some point we're all consumers, right? We're all consumers of the industry that we're working for. If we don't take care of it and nurture it, it's not going to be there for us. So, between you and me, sometimes my interest is very selfish because when it's my turn or my husband's turn or my mom's turn, I want to know that they're going to have excellent care and that it's not going to break their bank to take care of themselves, right? And so at specialty care management, I think probably one of the most unique things that we bring to the marketplace is in looking for how do we bring an appropriateness into dialysis in particular, is that, we look for where's the source of the bleed, right? Where's the source of that pain point? And traditionally, what you're going to find in the marketplace is just very, very short-sighted cost containment strategies. And cost containment is just a tiny bit of risk, right? It's an impactful part, but it's just a piece of what risk is. And so when somebody progresses to dialysis, and I'll tell you what really gets me fired up is over 60% of the cases where people end up progressing to dialysis, it's because of diabetes and heart disease. Why more people aren't shouting about that and really making an effort to turn it around? Well, I digress, because the cynic in me is going to say it's because we got people on a conveyor belt and it's taking them right off the cliff. And at the bottom of the cliff, there's a huge pile of cash. And that's not why, I know that's not the case. Most of us get into healthcare because we really care and we want to make a difference. But you get on that conveyor belt and you can get lost, right? And so our focus here is when we look at dialysis in particular, the strategies in the marketplace are just cost containment strategies, and they're based off of negotiating a discount off of a meaningless and arbitrary build charge. Anywhere we see those claims coming in from a few $100,000 to a few $1 million, upwards of $4 million. What do you do with that? You know, you have one or two people in a company that require that kind of, bring in that kind of a bill. It's breathtaking. And so what we do, and when we sat around the corner in 2002, when we started this program, and I'm using the Queen's we, because I'm the educated novice in this space, but we sat around the table, we looked at that pain point, and we said, well, if we're going to impact the change, it has to be from this build charge. The traditional strategy is not going to get us the effect that we want. So instead of working from the top down, from the build charges down, we actually craft and underwrite a flat fixed case rate for dialysis that makes sense, right? So we use a Windsor strategy model, and we will craft a flat fixed case rate that employers know each and every month upfront what that member's dialysis is going to cost. And across our book of business, John, we're saving folks almost 78%. 77.5% is our average across our book of business across the US. And even more, because the first dollar savings are pretty wow, right? But even more impressive is that since we've started that program, we have 100% persistence in those savings. That's huge. Most other programs on the market, they get a lot of noise. There's still risk. You get good and most strategies, say you get a $2 million a year claim and I negotiate from the top, get you a 50% discount. Well, then I'm going to turn around and charge you 20% of the million I saved you. Hot dog, let's jack it up. Let's go for $3 or $4 million, because I'm going to there's no incentive to really drive the cost down to keep an appropriateness in that space. It's just the greedy guts. And so our approach is really unique in that underwritten cost up approach not only saves dollars, but it also creates that persistency of savings. And especially when you look at, I think why our reputation is so sterling is that before we even contract with a group, a big part of what we do is to do a legal and administrative review. And that's where we look at, the plan document, we look at the network access agreement to determine legally, right, what's the risk to the group and how do we fit? How are we appropriate within the constraints of that legal and administrative environment? Sometimes we're just a simple amendment to the plan document. Other times we completely carve that out. Sometimes we'll create a separate standalone, benefit for that purpose. So there's really not an environment where we can't have an impact. And I think that's pretty huge. But then too, when you look at risk in the whole, the cost is just a piece of that. And that sticker tag, the other thing that I love, the nurse in me loves anyway, is that not only does that case rate include the provider reimbursement, it includes the legal and administrative review. There's no implementation fee, right? It's only billed for when we're doing something. When they're utilizing the case rate, that's when they pay for that. Everything's included, including the nurse support, right? And that's super duper important because, as you may know, most people on dialysis feel like crap. They don't have to. It's just most people, they don't know what things can I do? What's in my control to make that better? Most people don't know. So the nurse is going to support them to thrive on dialysis and to help them really understand what their Medicare benefit is. Because quite honestly, most people are super undereducated about that. And so we want to make sure that they understand what their Medicare benefit and access to that benefit is. Some people have told me things like, well, they tell me if I enroll in Medicare, I'm going to lose all my primary insurance, which is not true. It's a scare tactic between you and me. And so, but we want to make sure that people have adequate information so they can make a decision that's right for them, right? And that's a huge piece of that. It encompasses that risk. And what we're seeing is a lot of groups who are choosing to implement that kind of a package, almost like bubble wrap, right? So maybe they don't have dialysis yet, but they think, oh my gosh, I've got, knowing that diabetes is the number one driver. Diabetes, I'm sorry, it's in every group. If you have diabetes in your group, it makes sense to try not to develop kidney disease. I tell you, if you keep somebody off of dialysis, if you can affect the change early on upstream, there's swillions of dollars of savings in there. So a lot of people, what we're seeing is some people will put that dialysis, that case rate in place preemptively because there's no fee for it. It's just there. If they have a member, they're protected. And we're seeing rate credits of somewhere between 2 and 8%. That's huge. And then they'll go to work with us upstream with our Health Rates 360 or our CKD program to work to prevent them from ever needing the case rate. And that's my favorite, right? Why develop? You don't have to develop kidney disease, unless you have something genetic or you get in an accident and you're hemorrhaging to death and your organs shut down. That's a different matter, right? But for the most part, 60%, over 60% of cases of where people end up on dialysis, we should be getting those folks upstream, don't you think?
Well, that's amazing. That type of savings across the board is that 78% is just a huge savings.
Yep. And if you don't need it, that's even better. I tell you, I have squillions of stories of folks who within a couple of months, I've worked with folks who, surprisingly, a lot of folks who are down in the late stages of kidney disease, stage 3, stage 4, even stage 5, they haven't quite got on diet. A lot of those folks, 9 out of 10 people with really low kidney function are not aware of it. It's a shame, right? So, and that's why, people tend to they tend to surprise dialysis. It's really expensive to go to dialysis as a surprise and traumatic. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite. It's not our only product. I mean, we've got a pretty kick-butt cancer management program that's pretty similar in the fact that, it's not just the cost savings that we're providing. We also have an air ambulance program. Those are pretty robust, but, between you and me, the dialysis is easy to really demonstrate where we're really different in the marketplace.
That is great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? And those folks, that's a hard row. So they need EAP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting because when you look at overall health and wellness, some of those programs get a bad rap. And our upstream programs aren't wellness programs, they're specialty programs. But between you and me, I would a whole lot rather learn there's no free lunch, right? If I want to learn how to make my life better and to help myself be more well, give myself a little insulation so that I don't, it's expensive to be sick. It's expensive to be depressed. It's expensive to be addicted. It's expensive to divorce. It's expensive. A lot of these things that come with not preemptively taking care of ourselves, besides being hard and miserable, they're incredibly expensive. So I think learning what we can do to really make our lives better. Emergencies never happen when you're ready for them. Have you noticed that? Right? When you're ready, when the snowstorm hits, but you've got your supply of candles and your food supply and your alternate heating, it's not a big deal. It's like, woohoo, right? It's when we get caught with our pants down and we're not ready for a situation and we don't know what resources are available to us, or we don't have somebody in our corner, like a John Troutman. That's when life's really hard, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, and the reality is, physical issues lead to mental health issues, as do mental health issues lead to physical issues. And I'm a survivor of burnout. I was told by a clinician to take a 6-month sabbatical, and being a workaholic, I literally laughed in his face. So I had to learn the hard way through burnout, but that's helped strengthen my resolve and knowledge base to help people understand you can't do it all by yourself. You need to get that coach, because I had a whole host of physical issues that were a result of my mental health being ignored and not attended to or prioritized. So the two go hand in hand. And if you're not being proactive, there will be steep consequences somewhere down the line. So whether that be in your area or my area, I think that both those services really are hand in hand, if you will, in being towards that person's well-being. If they're going to be proactive and they want to be their healthiest person, you got to lead and be proactive and look at what's really going on. You might think everything is okay, but there could be other factors going on that you're not even paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I love that, you think about EAP. EAP is so great because it's there when you need it. And it's accessible. It's easy to, the EAP programs typically, and especially EAP programs like yours, where you have that strong consultative and educative approach. It's just such a great service, and to not utilize it, in my mind, is you're leaving a resource on the table. That's like a starving man walking up from the table and he hasn't even touched his plate, right? It's there. It's a fantastic way for employers to really demonstrate that they care about their members, and it will come back to them, because members who are healthy, members who have access to EAP, they bring it. This was so funny. I was thinking about you the other day. I was telling the story about the guy I worked with, and after working with a team, he commented how much different his life was. His wife looked at him differently, how he was, how he was feeling, at the top of his game, that he hasn't felt like that. That's what people bring, that in the workplace, and they carry it at home.
Yeah, they really do. It goes both ways. And, so whether it's at home or at your job, paying attention, and you may not even see it, but talking to someone. And it's very interesting because those supervisors, those employers that have used the service can now tell those employees, you know what? I want to encourage my employees to do this because I've used it. And in that environment where they've led by example, maybe with a call to get an idea, an overview of what the process is, but just being able to tell your employees that goes a very long way in tearing down those barriers that people have, that stigma towards mental health.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited because you're going to talk to us here pretty soon with our Wellness Wednesdays, our coaching cafe group. You're going to be sharing a little bit about how to do just that. How do you know when somebody is suffering, whether it's family or maybe your team at work, and what you can do to help? I think that's really important. So I'm excited to hear that. I love all the great content that you share and the workshops that you put up. If as we close, I know you've got one kicking off here that's fantastic. Fantastic. Was it $90 for the workshop that you have coming up? Tremendous interactive kind of workshop. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, because that's a fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's a great opportunity to be involved there in December, on December the 2nd, talking about being able to assess. I'll be just sharing a little about my own personal story of burnout and how people noticed what was going on with me. I didn't notice it myself, so that's a big part of it. But also with the workshop next week, $90 might seem like a lot of money, but you're going to get an assessment. It's not a webinar. It is a workshop. It's going to be interactive on Zoom, so you'll have the opportunity to share, ask live questions. It's about as face-to-face as we can get right now with a live audience. So it will not be a typical webinar. It's going to be a really powerful time, a 2-hour portion where a person will be given a link to take the assessment before the event, and also that opportunity to get specific personalized follow-up during the event itself. So it's a great opportunity for people to assess and better understand how to manage the stress they have. So again, we're all under stress right now. I've gone through that class myself. I've taken that workshop. It's very, very powerful. Cheryl Rodenbush does a great job in making it real. It's not at a high level of clinical verbiage. It's down to where all of us walk in everyday language. So it's very practical, very real world, very real life to help people have a better today and tomorrow.
Ooh, you're talking my kind of language, John. Meat and potatoes right there. Well, I got to tell you, you made my whole, you're always an uplifting voice, and I always appreciate talking to you. But taking time out of your busy day today and visiting with us, and really, really a bright spot, John. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Ciao.